All right, welcome to Professional Leadership. In this video, we're going to continue our model. If you remember last week, we discussed kind of the opening section of the executive's decision kind of component. We talked about vision casting. In fact, the last couple of weeks we've been on vision. So this week we're going to look at executive HR. Right? So no matter what kind of organization that you run, at the top level there will be typically a head leader and then a team of some sort of executives working underneath them. You see this in a church. You've got a senior pastor with a variety of other pastoral staff that work with them. You see it in the corporate world with the CEO and a variety of other executive and vice president positions. So for this model, we're talking about things that the leader is responsible for. So in any organization, I think executive HR is a very important concept to have considered. Obviously, the head executive, right, cannot hire everyone in the organization, particularly if it's an organization of any size. Right? The larger an organization gets, not only the more people, but the more spread out. You may have locations in various states or even countries, right? And so the idea that the executive would hire everyone is not even considered in most organizations, right? So they have an HR department that handles the majority of the hiring. I would throw in, though, that the upper level team, right, the executive team directly underneath the head leader needs to be hired exclusively by the head executive. Right? And when I say exclusively, I mean that the head executive has the final say and is actively involved in it. It doesn't mean that he doesn't take in outside information, perhaps the opinion of other team members, those types of things. But not only should the head executive have final say over everyone that is on that executive team, but he or she should also be actively involved in that and be contributing to the process. And there's a lot of reasons for that the relationships, right, between the upper level executives are a key part of the ability of the company to move forward. Right? It's out of those relationships that vision is passed and flows smoothly. Right? The top executive has a vision, but if there are personality conflicts or communication conflicts or effectiveness conflicts, there's all kinds of conflicts that could come between the top executive and the executive team. It has the effect of delaying the vision, slowing the vision down, hindering the vision, or distorting the vision, right? And so what we're looking for here is a flow of thought from the executive vision through the executive team into the workplace, right? And so in order to do that, it's very important that the chief executive be able to relate relationally with the executive team and to be able to connect well with them, right? So what we're going to deal with in this lesson are the variety of different considerations, right, that an executive should have when trying to fill in these very important positions, right? Okay. An interesting thought, just by way of illustration, is something called the chaos theory, right? And it doesn't have a whole lot to do with business normally, but it is kind of an interesting thought that deals primarily with atoms and pieces of nature and how their interrelation affects a lot of things, and that the space between them, the way that they interact with each other. And I think that is an important concept for the executive team, that They are all individual, they're all unique, but to the extent that they can interact effectively is really one of the key determining factors of whether an organization can move forward quickly and effectively, right? So anyway, so these relationships are important. That chaos theory, I think, is kind of interesting because it has a picture, if you will, of different atoms, right? And they're all moving and have missions and colliding, but then yet when you pull back, right, it looks like a desk or it looks like a chair because they efficiently move together. And so what looks like chaos in many ways, if you were to see the fast-moving electrons and neutrons, it may look like chaos at certain perspectives, but there is also an order to the chaos, and that there is an interrelation between the parts that helps to keep the order, right? So anyways, kind of an interesting thought for executive teams that there is often a lot of activity, a lot of vision, a lot of thoughts, a lot of things going on that sometimes seems like it's very hectic, right? But when you step back and look at what is being accomplished, it should resemble something more concrete, that you can step back and look at this company and see an effective company, but then yet the interrelation between the different parts is often frenetic sometimes, right, as people are trying to get vision accomplished. Okay, so a couple of things to consider in this. The first one that I would throw out is vision fit. Right? So this is something that the executive needs to think about. Are they going to hire based on an individual's ability to fit the vision, right? Some companies do it differently. Some companies hire and then try and fit a vision around who they've hired, right? Some people have a vision and they try and hire to fulfill the vision, right? So this is something that you have to consider, vision fit. How are you going to handle this part of the process? Are you going to have your vision first and then try and find people with the skills necessary to accomplish it? I think that's probably the best way to go. But there is a lot of movement towards another way, which some organizations are doing, where they're saying, okay, let's see what kind of skill is out there. Let's see what kind of people we can hire. And then as they hire in people, maybe they adjust the vision based on what kind of skill they're able to bring in. So that's something to consider, is vision fit, right? Another thing that I would throw out there to consider is the leadership style of the executive. They need to have that in the back of their mind. What kind of leader are they? Because you're going to have to hire people that fit with the type of leadership that you want to give, particularly along this line. Some executives see their role as more of a kind of overarching father figure who is going to mentor and develop the people around them, and so they are looking for an extremely relational fit. Right? And so they want to not only see things be effective in terms of what the company produces, but they see their meetings and their personal time with the executive team as a way to build camaraderie and unity among the executive team. But not every executive leader views it that way. Some executive leaders view the executive team as people that they should be able to work autonomously. Right? And so some executives are hiring people because they want to hire competent people that they can just send off on a mission and know that it's going to get done, and their focus is not on the unity and the conversations and the relational side of it. They're looking at, can this person get the job done, because I really want to just release them to their project and have confidence that they're going to get it done, right? So, and you can see leadership all along that spectrum. On the one end, you've got people that are looking for the executives to be autonomous, get out there, get the job done. You're on your own. And then you have people that consider themselves on the other extreme a mentor to the people that they've hired, and they are seeking to develop and to build them, right? There's not a wrong or a right to this. It's just a spectrum. And so the executive needs to understand that what they're looking for and their expectation on this will guide the type of employee that they're hiring, right? Somebody that fits autonomously may feel frustrated in an environment where relational expectations are high, right? Someone who's got extensive experience may feel out of place with a leader who's trying to still develop them, right? Or vice versa, a leader with who's looking for that relational connection that gets sent out on an island, may feel disconnected and unable to convey the vision properly because they don't have that relational fit. So I don't necessarily think that in all aspects of a person's character, right, that the leader needs to be trying to find people just like them. But in this category, right, of their leadership style, I think it's very important to hire people that can fit into your leadership style, right? You don't want a bunch of duplicates and a bunch of you running around, right, in terms of skills and abilities and even really personality. But what you do need to know is, are you hiring people that can fit into your overarching leadership style in terms of relational versus autonomous, right? Because that's a very big category that can create a lot of friction if you hire people looking for one thing and place them in another. So for most of your hiring, you're probably looking for people that are complementary to you, people that have skills that you do not have, right? But I think this one category, it's important to hire along the lines that you are going to lead in, hire people that are a good fit for that, right? Okay. A couple other things. It's important to remember the cultural aspect. The reason you're going to have to hire people that share many of your expectations for the culture of the organization, right? Now, this incorporates spiritual things, character things, morality, integrity, all of the things that we did in the first model that influence the culture of the organization. You really need to hire people that buy into that, because the culture is not just something that is spoken, it is something that is embodied and then influenced and then replicated, right? So you embody it, you influence people with what you embody, who you are, and then you see it replicated based on what you were influencing them with, right? So if someone is not at their core what you believe the organization should be, they will not be able to reproduce that. They will reproduce whatever they are. So this is another area, right, where it's very important to monitor what you're hiring, that you need to hire not only people that will fit your relationship, your leadership style on the relational versus autonomous scale, you also need to find people that are a good match with the cultural aspects of your team. Because the executive team, collectively, often has more cultural influence than even the top executive does individually, right? So if you've got a team of 10 or 12 top executives who are working hand in hand with departmental directors and unit level managers, they're going to have probably, when you add them all up collectively, more influence than the top executive does, because they're closer to the day-to-day operations. And so you can't think that the culture from the top executive is going to be enough to influence if you don't have it with your executive team, right? And culture is one of those things, when we're talking about spiritual values and integrity and character, those are the types of things that you can't just teach someone in a class. Typically, if you hire those, they have to have it coming in, right? So those, to me, the minimum standard, right, that you would be looking for is someone who shares the cultural side of what you're trying to reproduce, someone who will fit well with your particular leadership style in the relational versus autonomous category, right? And then after that, then you're really looking for skills, talents, and trying to fit those things in so that your bare minimum, right, is the culture and the leadership fit. And then once you get that, then you begin to say, okay, does skill set fit with our need? And there you have some freedom. You find someone that has a cultural fit, and maybe you find room for their skill set, right? Because they're such a good cultural fit, you find something that they can do. Or, some people say, I want to find their skill set. I'm only going to hire somebody whose skill set fits with a need, right? So that's you have some leeway there. Do you hire only those people that fit your need, or do you hire people who are a cultural fit and find something for them to do? Because sometimes the cultural fit can be harder to find than the skill fit, right? Okay. A couple other things to throw out there. I would say you need, as a leader, to have put some thought into this dichotomy. Commonality factors, right, versus abrasive factors, right? So what do I mean by that? That there are different personality components, different ways of doing things, and so along these different factors, there is commonality and there's abrasive. Abrasive means that it's not common, that it's going to rub you the wrong way. And you have to know what is your tolerance for abrasive factors in the people that you hire, right? Different people approach this differently. Let me give you an example. You've got a leadership room, right? Some people would prefer the peace and the unity that comes by a more or less common worldview about how to do things, so that when an issue rises up, unity of thought is often expected, right? And that you have, because people on the team have been hired a certain way, that you expect that everyone on the team is probably more or less going to see the issue very similar, right? Verse, some people prefer a team of people who see the situation very differently, because even though they may butt heads, they also provide different perspectives, right? So you have to understand, what is your tolerance for that. Some leaders get frustrated with the constant diverse points of view, because it can be hard to create unity and efficiency and speed when you got 4 or 5 people wanting to do it in different ways. And so you need a strong leader to be able to have 5 different points of view in the room, all of them from other strong leaders, and be able to be assertive in the final decision and unify everyone along those lines. There can be great strength with a variety of perspectives, right? And then there's great strength in commonality as well, right? So that's just something that you have to decide where you find your strength in, right? And then we've talked a little bit about this one, but skill versus need, right? I think this is an important factor. Someone comes in, they're a cultural fit, they have a lot of skill, right? Can you find a way to make use of their skill set, right? Or do you hire for need only, right? Now, just in a pure vacuum, you might say, well, I might as well just hire for the need that I have. If I can get a great quality person and fill them into my need, that's really all that I need to do. problem is there's not always, this, ideal selection of individuals, right? You don't always have people beating down your door who are top-notch individuals with the skill sets that you need to accomplish, and the personality that fits with you, and the character and worldview that's common to yours. In an ideal setting, you would have that, right? But you're going to have to make some decisions about what do you do when someone comes in and they are a great person and they're a great fit, but they bring to the table some things, some strengths in some areas and perhaps some weaknesses in others that doesn't necessarily line up with what you were expecting, right? Some people would just, not hire them and just try and wait until they get the right fit, right? So that's part of it. And then some other people would say maybe if we've had this individual come in, they're really great in a lot of other areas, is there a way that we can make this work, right? Can we train them in the thing we want them to do, or is that too far of a gap? Can we create some new things that the company could do, right? So it's just something to consider. I think by and large, if somebody's applying for a particular position, particularly at an executive level, they probably have some competency in that general field. And so these may be more nuanced type things where you're looking at maybe some of their previous experience and saying, well, we haven't had anyone do it quite like that. Maybe we can tailor some things to where they can keep doing what they know because it worked for them before, right? Anyways. So that's some opposite ends of the scale that the leader has to figure out where do I find my balance, right? What am I expecting? Because there's not a right and a wrong answer often when you're dealing with people. There can be some wrong answers, surely, but there can also be quite a few correct answers as well when you're talking about fit for individuals within your organization. So I think the leader has to be aware of the ends of the spectrum and make decisions about what is most important for the company from a balanced perspective, right? Okay. And then let me give you two other little things. Fielder's contingency model, right? That's a name we can throw out there. Fielder's contingency model deals kind of with this thought, right? Contingency meaning context changes and how you react to that. So Fielder's contingency model says that it's effective to find situations that fit a leader's strength set, right? I agree with that, but I don't think that that's comprehensive. I think that some leaders are adaptable, that they have had success because of who they are as a person and an individual, and with a little bit of time, a new context can see them be successful. But I do think that this warrants some attention because there are some other studies out there that show, for instance, say somebody that's really good working in commercials, maybe awful on live TV, right, and vice versa. Or someone who's great professional athlete in basketball may have a hard time being a professional athlete in another sport, right? Even though they're athletic, skill in one area doesn't necessarily translate into skill in another. So I think these are all decisions that come with the executive top, top of the line here. He's got to make, or she's got to make some significant decisions. And the best way to make these decisions is to be aware of the extremes on either side and to understand what am I making my decisions off of, right? What are we looking at? What are we expecting? And let me give you one other thought, and this is the readiness spectrum. Readiness, right? What level of readiness are you expecting for the people around you? Right now, if it's a large company like GM or something and they're hiring an executive, they're going to hire them ready to go. I mean, they'll probably train them on some specifics, but they're going to expect that these people have been doing this probably for decades if they're going to be in an executive level position in a large company. But not everybody has that kind of reach, right? Some companies have 30 employees and they need, maybe 5 to 10, leadership positions to be filled. And so maybe they're not, able to pull from the same pool that a large company is pulling from, right? So you have to understand in your mind before you go in, where am I at on the readiness scale? Can I look for someone who's intelligent and full of character, and can I train them to do what I want them to do? Or am I looking for somebody that's got experience, even if maybe some of the other things that I'm looking for are not there, right? And that's a decision that you have to make, right? What is more important to you? Cultural fit or experience, right? This is important for the readiness scale, right? Does the person have to have done this for a long time? Or can you find someone eager and fresh who will kind of learn from you and be bright enough to, within short order, have adapted and be able to be successful, right? So you have to incorporate your readiness scale, right, in terms of skill, right, and experience. What are you looking for, and what can you accept, right? So these are all executive HR decision kind of thoughts, because the decisions you make here affect everything else in the organization. And so this is really, when you're talking about filling in the top positions, something that really only the top leader needs to do, because there's so much interrelation and so much riding on those choices that it really does need to fall back to the top level executive.